So we are live now. So this is the lesson we are going to be covering this morning. So it's the lesson 2.3, which is called Vocabulary and Skills Development. We've got two goals with this lesson. The first one is to understand and use collocations of perception and sound. And the second one is all about taking notes that even though it might sound a little bit too obvious, you'll see that it's not that obvious. And also, based on the experience we had with the test and the experience that you would have taking an international test, you will say that taking notes is key. So those are essentially the goals. So guys, let me just stop sharing here. I've got a question for you as usual. So the first one would be, let me see exactly where we can put it. Well, I think we're gonna do it on the chat box. So guys, I'd like you to basically I'd like you to number to number the 5 senses. You know that they say, I mean, we say that we as humans, we have 5 senses, right? Let me just put it over here, the 5 senses. So what I'd like you guys to do is just to make the list of those 5 senses. Let's check that vocabulary. So if you will, guys, right now on the chat box, you can simply put those names, you know, the names of the 5 senses. You can go like a list, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the name of each one of the senses, or you can separate them by commas. But I would like to see that chat box full of participations from you guys, full of things you are sharing. So we've got 2 minutes for that, guys. So I want to say that in this very moment. So let's say touch, hear, smell, hair, smell, sight, taste. Okay, that's one shot. Who wants to share that as well, guys? Come on. And that's it, right? Come on. Hearing, smell, taste, sight, touch, hear, sight, smell, taste. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, we've put together some ideas already. So yes, based on what you guys have said, okay, so those are the right words for that. So Valeria, Diana as well, John, Angie, I think you guys hit the spot. So when we talk about our capacity to see, we are talking about our sight, right? And when we talk about our capacity to hear, we can, oh, by the way, some of you used gerund for this, gerunds. But that's not exactly how we use it. And actually, oh, there's a little correction because when we talk about our senses, we always use, I mean, we use nouns, right? We don't use verbs. So for instance, sight is right. In that case, sight is right. When we talk about our capacity to hear something, we talk about sound. We don't talk about hear or hearing. Okay, so so that's the name of the sense, your sound sense. It's called like that. Okay. There are some cases in which it could look as a verb, although it is not, like in the case of a smell. So a smell is right. I mean, that's how we define our capacity to sense, you know, smells. You see, and that's why we can use a smell, because a smell can be both a verb and also a noun. So you say, I smell coffee, for instance. So that is the smell of coffee. You see, it's pretty much the same word with the 2 different functions. It doesn't happen with hear, you see, and that's why we use sound instead of hear. So let me just put them over here. So the first one is hear. So we say we use this one. I'm sorry, it's not here. That's exactly what I did the other way. What I've said just before. So the first one is sound. It's not here. Okay, it's not here. because here is only a verb. It is not a noun. So that's why we cannot put it as the name of the sense. So it is sound, okay? When we refer to our capacity to see something, when we refer to our capacity to perceive smells, we use smell. And we use this word because it is a verb, but it's also a noun. So that's why it's possible to use it as the name for the sense. Okay. Then when we refer to our capacity to perceive sensations via our skin, we do talk about touch. Same thing happens here. Touch can be a verb, but it's also a noun. You see? Um, that's how we put it. Then, when we want to refer to our capacity to like to feel, like not to feel, like to perceive or to describe or to sense a flavors, we talk about taste. Same thing happens here. It is a verb, but it's also a noun. So that's why it works exactly that way. And last but not least, which one are we missing? I feel, oh my God, we're missing one. Which one are we missing? Oh my God. So I think, is it there? Oh, we are missing, of
Sorry.
course, sites. Um, and side, it is only a noun. Okay, side is not a verb. So those are the five senses. Okay, guys, those are the five senses, and those are the words we must use for that. Now, I've got a question here, which is, I believe it's one of those questions which is almost impossible to answer sometimes, but we are going to try to make the effort, let's say. I mean, all of the senses, of course, are important. All of them are important, right? It's not like we could imagine the world without any of those. Those of us who perhaps have had the chance and the blessing, to have all the senses, if we didn't have one of them, the world would completely change the perception we have of the world. And actually, this is a game I had when I was back in school with a friend of mine, and that was, we were discussing once, and that was a very nice discussion back then. I was in 11th grade back then, so yeah, that was like ages ago. So I remember that once we were talking, and we said, like, you know, the colors that we can see are the colors that our sense of sight allows us to perceive. And we know that there are more colors, you see, but we just see a version of it. We see our own version, the human version of reality in terms of perception. We know, for instance, that cats or dogs, they perceive the world in with a different kind of color. You see, they perceive world in a different kind of color. So that means that, for instance, if I take, I don't know, any object that I've got here. So this case, for instance, I could say, no, this case is black, but other animals would see it differently, right? Other animals would say, like, that's, I mean, if they could talk, they would say that's gray, right? But there are also some other colors in reality that we can simply see. There's things that we cannot see. For instance, the waves of the Wi-Fi. You see, we cannot see the waves of the Wi-Fi, but chances are that there are species who can. You see, so it's just fantastic just to think about how there are so many colors and there are so many different things that we can simply see. We can't see those things. And that's because our human capacity is limited, you see. And the same happens with all the rest of our senses. We just can perceive a portion, a percentage of what reality actually is, you see. So, so if you give a piece of pie to an animal, the flavor for that animal would be different than that you can perceive, you see. um and I don't know, that might sound like it's something silly, but it is just amazing to think about how we have this limited experience, which means that there is a total experience. There must be a total experience, and by total experience I mean the total flavor. So for instance, I've got this cup of coffee here, and I know that I can just perceive a certain percentage of it, and that other animals could perceive flavors and sensations that I can't. You see? So that's interesting to see, like, what would be the actual color of plants? What is the color they have? I mean, is there any other colors they have that I cannot perceive? You see, that kind of question. So the question here, guys, is think about, guys. I'd like you to think about which of these senses do you believe is the most important of them all, and which one could be the least? Understanding that all of them are important. It's not like there is one which is optional. I mean, no, all of them are important, and that's why we got them. But I'd like you to think about which one would be the one we can simply live without, and that one that we could somehow live without. Okay, that is the question. Sort of a silly question, perhaps, but I'd like you guys to have that discussion. So I'd like you to take around 3 to 4 minutes to have this brief discussion. And then let me see if we've got something else. No, I think that's it. Let me see. Just to see if we can make the most of time. Give me a second. Yep. We're gonna just go there 3 to 4 minutes to the breakout rooms. You guys can choose who to work with, and then we're gonna come back here to start with a lesson. Okay, so that is, guys, the question is, which of the 5 senses you think is the most important one, and which one do you think might be the least important? Okay, that's exactly what we're gonna do. Let me just open the breakout rooms. There are 12 breakout rooms, and let's get ready, guys. So we've got 4 minutes. Let's do this really quick, and then we come back. So as I said, this is one of those questions that we say like, oh my God, seriously? That's kind of hard to answer, right? But still, I'd like to listen to your ideas. So I would like to open the microphone, if you will, just for you guys to share with the rest of us your insights and your ideas on this weird question on which sense you guys think is the most important one, and which one you guys think might be the least. So what can you say about that, guys? Who wants to say something about it? Diego, please.
Okay, we discussed, and this the sense I couldn't live without
Mhm.
is the well, there are two, the sight and the sound. For
Uh-huh.
me, are the most important, and the sense that I could live with is the touch.
The touch. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, but we should think also about implications, you see? So so yeah, like certainly.
Yeah, I see it because I don't know how live without the touch is about, because when someone touch your face or touch your body, you are experience or feeling something. So I don't know how could live without the touch. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
with your hands with something. I don't know how it is, but I couldn't live without the sight and the hearing. I don't know. I couldn't live without seeing my family, the person I love, the face, or is hearing just the these the voice of someone, or just the people or something. So that's it.
Okay. Although I'm thinking about that, and I don't know, life without touch would be a really, I mean, sad and dangerous, I would say, because first of all, you couldn't experience any kind of sensation. So for instance, if you kiss a person, you wouldn't feel anything because of course your lips are included there. It's not just your hands, for instance, but it's everything. So you wouldn't feel anything. And same thing happens if they hurt you. So for instance, I know that this is a genetic disease. I don't remember the name, but it's like you wouldn't feel pain. So for instance, let's say, I don't know, that somebody stopped you on the back, you wouldn't feel anything, you see, because you didn't have the sense of touch. So they could shot you in the leg and you wouldn't feel anything. And that's not like I'm super powerful. No, it's like you're gonna die and you will not know why. Yes, Valeria.
Okay, so I have a lot of problem with my sight, like
Mhm,
a lot. And there's one doctor that said to me one time that I could lose my sight if I
mhm,
don't take care of my eyes. So couldn't, I cannot live without my sight. I can imagine.
mhm, mhm.
And I can live without my taste. I don't find it that important. And if you had COVID, you know
I
that is
I
not that
guess.
important. So
I
yeah.
know, I know. I would agree with Valeria. Though that would be my selection as well. It's like it would be sad because there are certain flavors that I enjoy so much, especially coffee, as I've said before. But you wouldn't die necessarily, I think. But the rest of them might be a little bit more dangerous. Diana says, I was thinking, most of us say that we wouldn't live without sight and sound, which is understandable, but I think that it is because we're used to that. There is people that actually live like that. That is absolutely true. And that's why I said that it's a matter of perception, you see. So it's like we say, no, we cannot live without our sight. And that's how we feel because we have already experienced this. But there are people who have never experienced that sense. They've perhaps were born blind or they lost their sight in any point of their life. So they got used to not having that and they could live with that. But still, in the case of us who had the chance to experiment or to experience those senses, we cannot imagine the world like that. And it's like, just imagine that. If you just and this is something I've done a couple of times. Like when I'm doing anything, I just, for instance, close my eyes and imagine what would happen if I couldn't see anything. You see, and that it's like that takes away a very big dimension, a very big part of reality. So that's how we see how every single sense is so important, you see, because at the end of the day, all our senses do exactly the same. And what they do is perceive information, you see, perceive information in so many different ways. And it's our brain, the one which is in charge of transforming that information into meaning. But if we don't have any of these senses, it's like we are limiting our capacity or the kinds of or the kind of information we can, absorb or incorporate and assign meaning to. So well, there you go, guys. Even though it might sound as a very silly question, you can see that there are some reflections that might be a little bit deep as well. Okay, anybody else, guys, would like to share, answers or ideas on these questions? No, nothing. Okay, guys. So let's get over this. So let me just share my screen again. Um, so it was all about this idea of perception and sound, and as I said, that has to do with how we perceive reality and how our senses allow us to process. I mean, not necessarily process, but perceive stimuli and information around us. By the way, I think we have already explained this word, right, guys? Stimuli. We have explained this word before. That's I've got it in the back of my head, right? Have we explained this word before, guys? By any chance? Yeah, this
Well,
is
this
the
I don't remember.
this is the typical kind of question that I always make. So that's why I feel that I've done it before. How would you translate that word, guys? Stimuli. This is one of these philological moments, right? How,
Like
how
stimular or something
excuse
like
me?
that. Stimular or something like that.
No, that's not that would be to stimulate. This is a noun. But how would you translate this noun into Spanish?
Estímulo.
That is wrong. Because in that case, it would be a stimulus. You see? In that case, it would be stimulus. So let me just put it over here as well. The stimulus would be the singular form, and stimuli is the plural form. Can you believe it? Now, the question is, how come the plural form has that form, stimuli? Why the plural form goes like that? Is there any idea, guys, which you may have?
No, teacher, no idea.
Well, teacher, that is not because we have an irregular nouns.
Excuse me?
That is not because we have like an irregular nouns that change in the way that we put this.
That's part of the explanation. Yeah, that's part of the explanation, and that has to do with the fact that in English we have irregular verbs. We know that, but we also have irregular nouns. That is right. But why? Still, why? Why irregular nouns? I mean, where do they come from, or what? You say, because there are many actually. There are other example. For instance, we've got this one. Let me just put him. For instance, bacterium, bacteria, being bacterium singular and being bacteria plural. Well, guys, the reason for that is that you will see that two of I mean, we know that English is an Anglo-Saxon language, right? So in terms of the roots of the language, in terms of the actual origin of the language, it's a language that shares roots with German, for instance, in terms of the roots of it. But in terms of the historical contact English has had with other languages, there are two languages that have had a very, very deep impact on English. And that's something you can see these days very clearly. Those languages are Latin and French. Those are the two languages that I would say have the most evident presence or impact on the English language, you see. And talking about these cases specifically, we've got a number of nouns of Latin origin in English. So you can just Google it like that, like Latin nouns in English, for instance. So these are words that came directly from Latin and were incorporated in English. But the funny part is that also the morphology of those words was incorporated. So it was not, in terms of pluralization, for instance, it was not like they borrowed these words from Latin. I mean, not borrow, but they incorporated these words from Latin, and then also the pluralization. No, they also included the pluralization of Latin, which is funny, you see, because otherwise they would have said steam is I don't know, like stimulus and stimuluses or something like that. I don't know how to put it, or bacterium and bacteriums, right? But that's not how it works. In that case, they decided to include also the Latin pluralization. So there are several words that you will find, guys. You have to be very careful because those words, every time you see a word that looks like weird, like bacteria, stimuli, like it doesn't sound very English. In most of the cases, the reason is that that word comes from Latin, and you have to be very careful with the pluralization because, as Felipe said, they are irregular nouns, which means that the pluralization of those nouns doesn't work just the way it works for the rest of nouns. So you have to be very, very careful with that. Good news is that most of these words are present in scientific texts or academic texts. So these are not words that we use on a daily basis all the time. These are more like words that we would see in certain texts or in academic contexts, as I said. Okay, but that's just for you to keep in mind. So the reason why I ended up explaining this is that when we talk about all the things that we can sense, all the things that we can see, smell, taste, touch, and everything, all of those things can be classified as a stimuli. Okay, all of those are stimuli. That's essentially it. Okay, guys, just for you to keep in mind. So, well, talking about how we process all these stimuli and how we actually use those senses for specific tasks in life. We're gonna go with the exercises 1 and 2A, which are the next two things we're gonna do. So guys, you guys will go back to your breakout rooms and you will work in these two things that we are going to both discuss and correct when we come back from the breakout room. So the first one says, work with a partner and answer, how good are you at these activities? So this is going to be a little reflection and that you guys are going to share with your classmates. So first of all, how good are you at making conversations with strangers? There you go. The second one, listening to other people's problems and noticing changes in your friend's appearance, speech, behavior, etc. These are three different things which are related somehow with senses, and we are going to discuss that. So you guys are going to self-assess yourselves and tell your partners how good or how bad you guys might be at these three different things. And then in the exercise 2A, what we're gonna do is just to make 6 common collocations to do with perception and sound. You may remember what collocations are. And when we were talking about language conventions and so on, that's a topic that we connected to it. So collocations, just to put it simple, we could say that collocations are words or combination, standard combination of words. So these are words that normally can go together and just to compose meaning. So I will give you a very quick example, which is actually right here on the vocabulary focus. So for instance, how do you say hacer ruido in English? Hacer ruido. How do you say that in English? Guys?
Make a noise.
Make a noise, right? Why don't we say do a noise? You see? There are some people who might say, I don't know, that person there is doing a lot of noise. And that sounds like it makes sense. But we cannot say that. We would say that person is making a lot of noise. So that's an example of a collocation. You see, this verb and this complement, this which is a noun, they would go together because that's the actual collocation in English. You see, that is the combination we would use. We might actually give a semantic explanation for that because there are semantic explanations for that when we're in the cases in which we use make versus do. There is a semantic explanation, but there are some cases in which those explanations are not possible and those words go together just because, you see, because that is a collocation, that is the right combination, that is it. So that's what we're going to explore here with the exercise 2A. We're going to see a 6 different collocations which are related with this idea of perception and sound, okay? So you guys are going to take around 10 minutes to do the exercises 1 and 2A. Then when we come back here, we're going to discuss the first part, and I'd like you to talk as much as possible, guys. This is so important because you know what? And that's part of one of my ideas regarding the speaking test. The speaking test is so useful because it actually allows me to see what's your actual level of competence. And there are some cases in which you guys, and I've seen some of you have a very good level of English, which is great, but some of you need to practice way more. So those of you who don't feel very comfortable speaking, actually, this is the moment in which you should speak the most because this is the moment for that. Okay, so that would be perfect if when we come back, you guys try to participate as much as possible. That is the idea. And then we will also, of course, check the collocations. Okay, is there any question, guys, about that? No questions?
No, teacher.
Okay, guys, so I'm gonna open breakout rooms again. As I said, we've got 10 minutes for this. Let me just recreate the rooms. You can choose who to work with, but make sure you choose someone because there are some cases in which you guys go to rooms in which there's no one. And, you know, one of the reasons why we open breakout rooms is because you would work with others. It's not just for isolating yourself, which is an option, technically speaking, but that's not the idea. So let's go, guys. We said 10 minutes for the whole thing. Let's do this. So let me see. Let us see. What are your answers, ideas, opinions, etc., regarding these three different activities? So let's get started with the first one, making conversations with strangers. So how good are you guys at that? How good do
I'm
you guys
not
feel?
I'm not as good as as I could
Mhm,
be, because I'm not the person who starts the conversation. I let the others to start the conversation. And when the others start the conversation, I follow the conversation. But
mhm,
I'm not the person in charge to start it. So I think that
mhm.
that's the one that I'm not good at. But the other ones I'm
Okay.
good at.
Okay. Thank you very much. Diego, Daniel.
I gotta say that the first step is always the hardest. Like trying to get to know a person you don't know. It's really hard because that's when most of your feelings overwhelm you, most of
Mhm,
the
mhm,
thoughts, and the most dangerous thing is the what ifs that start to grow in your mind about all the possible outcomes that they are just wrong in order to meet a new person or start a
mhm.
conversation, even if it's not aiming for forming a bond
Uh-huh.
of friendship. Talking to a strange person could really overwhelm the mind of
Mhm.
a person who's not prepared.
That is absolutely true. Mhm, mhm. And you know, I don't know, guys, based on what Diego and Daniel have said, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. I don't know, you are in a meeting, a party, whatever, and you're getting to know people for the first time, and they say their names, and you don't remember their names. Has it happened to you?
Yes, a lot.
And do you know why that happens? I don't. Oh, why do you think that happens? That's better.
Our brain thinks remembering their names is not important enough.
It could be a possibility. But of course, it has to do with the load our brain is dealing with. The thing is that when that happens to you, it happens because your brain is so focused on giving a good first impression that perhaps if you're not conscious about that, you may simply not remember the name of people. You see, that is the reason why we get to know someone for the first time and then we just don't remember the name of that person. And that has to do with that feeling Danielle was describing, that overwhelming feeling. You see, like that sensation that it's of even anxiety in some cases, you see? So we don't remember people's names because we are so focused on giving a good impression. So when you meet the person, your brain is focusing completely on saying your own name well, on looking good, whatever. So we simply don't pay attention to that. So the way we can fix that is that being conscious about that, being conscious that our brain somehow is going to focus on that, and then we pay more attention to that name of that person, and we repeat it in our head. So it's like, nice to meet you. My name is Diego. Oh, Diego. Okay, Diego. You repeat that name in your head, and that's gonna help you a little bit remembering. So there you go. So yes, I agree with you guys. That would be my case as well. Making conversation. I know, I don't know. I think, well, yes, I think that's the one that I believe is I'm the worst at. Although the third one, I'm also kind of bad at that, to be honest. But let's go. Let's continue with the next one. Listening to other people's problems. Listening to other people's problems. What do you think about that, guys? What would you say about that one?
So,
I don't know.
teacher, in
Felipe,
my
Nicolas,
case,
yeah.
uh,
Yes,
I
Felipe,
am a
Nicolas, and
good
then Miguel. Mhm,
okay. I am a good listening to other people's problems,
mhm, mhm,
because I know that sometimes they need to talk to someone to receive an advice or something like that. Yeah. For example, where in most of my friends tell me a lot of things related to their life, and I like listening to them. And if I have the chance, I give them an advice and I support them in the things that they want to do. Obviously, in the good things that they want to do,
mhm.
not in the bad things, but I am a good listener, teacher.
There you go. And I will make a comment about that in a moment. I like to listen first to Felipe and then Miguel. They also wanted to share something. So
Well, yes,
guys,
teacher. Well, basically, I think that is sometimes it's hard to like. Well, it's good to listen because it's kind of respectful, but there is a moment in which you start thinking, but what should I say? What should I say that is correct? Is that is not correct? Is that is going to help them? Is not is that is not going to help
and we lost you. Oh, I think we lost Felipe, right? Okay, I'm sorry. I think we lost Felipe. We are not listening to him anymore.
help?
Oh no, yeah, we lost him. I'm sorry about that. Let's as we wait for Felipe, perhaps Miguel can share his thoughts with us. Miguel Angel.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I want to say that I'm really good at give advices, and the basically problem is that I don't follow my advices. I think that for me it's really difficult to choose between two colors, but I resolve a lot of problems of
Uh-huh.
my parents or different people that need advice. So for me, it's really easy because I like listen to other people, and I don't know, it's like a passion, and it's I feel good when I can help another
Mhm, mhm.
person for her problems or his problems. I think.
There we go. And you know what? That's perhaps one of the key characteristics of teachers, you know, people who are people who study this. That's like a good disposition we tend to have. Like we like to help people, we like to listen to people. That's a good, let's say, feature of teachers. The point here, guys, and I was trying to look for that here, but I couldn't find it because I know I've got a presentation on that. And that has to do with the kind of feedback as well, you see, because I mean, and by feedback I mean this act of listening to people and answering, or you know, supporting them or something. So it's like when we listen to other people's problems, there are some cases, and I'm sure that you've experienced that with other people. There are some people who would listen to you and then they would immediately tell you what you should do, you say. So they listen to you and they say, look, that is not good, you should do this and that, why don't you try this and that? And that's some sort of a directive feedback, which in some cases is not what we are looking for, because we are not looking for a person who tells us what to do, but we are rather looking for a person to empathize with, you see. So it's like there are some people who might tell you what to do, there are some others who perhaps would just listen, and they as I mean, the act of listening for them is just waiting for their turn to speak. So they are actually just hearing you, not listening, and that's not good either. So it's like there are different kinds of feedback we could receive, and at the end of the day, what we want people from us is just like listen to us and somehow empathize and be in our position, so they can give us some sort of, you know, sincere feedback. So that's also a very complex thing to do, to be honest, listening to other people's problems. And the last one, guys, which was noticing changes in your friend's appearance, speech, behavior. How good are you guys at that? I'm terrible, to be honest. So that's why I like to know how good you guys are at that, noticing changes, especially in people's appearance, you know. You know what they say, it's a typical joke of this a woman who does something on her hair, or like is using some clothes for the first time, and her boyfriend or husband can notice as he if he was stupid or something, you know. I'm that kind of guy sometimes. So I'm confident, Lina. Your about your question. Confident. Oh, oh, look, I'm sorry. I've received two very good questions from the audience, and I had completely ignored one. So the first one is how to say yo soy confidente or soy confiado. Um, well, it depends exactly what you mean, but if you want to say that you you trust yourself somehow, just say I'm confident. But also there is another word when you want to when you want to refer to a person you can trust on, you see. So it's like, for instance, I tell my problems to my mother because I trust her. The adjective we use for that, let me just put it over here, trustworthy. Trustworthy means exactly that. You know, when you can trust a person because he or she actually listen to you and stuff like that. So you say, I always tell my problems to her because she is absolutely trustworthy, because she is trustworthy. Okay. Um, so that answers the other question. The question was, how can we say una persona en la que se puede confiar? There you say, trustworthy. That would be the word. Trustworthy, a word to refer to a person you can trust. There you go. And the last one, if I'm not wrong, oh, well, we were talking about that, guys. If you are good or not at noticing people's changes. So what can you say about that, guys? Nothing? So I assume you guys are not very good at noticing people's changes. And that's why you don't want to say anything, because you feel, I don't know, ashamed, you know, it feels not good for you to talk about that. Let's say it. Okay, guys, so this is what we're gonna do now. We're gonna make a little pause here. Actually, we're going to make a full pause here. And as I said, I will open 2 breakout rooms. I mean, we are going to continue with this lesson tomorrow, but this time I will open the breakout rooms. There will be 2 breakout rooms, and I will call you one by one. I mean, not one by one, but in small groups, just to give you your grades of a speaking test really quick and some comments about that. Okay. Once I finish with the group in which I called you, once I called you and I finish with that group, you are ready to go. And I will take the list based on that. So don't worry, I will not call the list by the end, but I will call it as we, call people to this feedback session. This is something very simple. I will call you in groups. I will tell you, look, this was your grade in the speaking test, and I will make some general comments about that, and that's it. Have you got any questions, guys?
Did you